long story short, I'll introduce myself to you. First and foremost, I'm a father and a husband. I've got 3 kids, 10 through any day now will be the fourth one added. I live in outside of Rochester, New York. I was born and raised in Penfield. Went to school in Connecticut to be a physical therapist way back in the day. Spent 6 years and $250,000 to get an education that I then applied to the real world and almost did it for long enough to make my money back. It was a very college was a very expensive party that resulted in 3 degrees and the realization that I had no desire to do the thing that I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. And so I said, well, crap, I got to figure something else out. And that's when I made the foray into real estate investing. And I did, I think, what a lot of you guys here have probably done or are looking to do. And that is I got started in the world of small multifamily and single family rentals. I was a landlord in the city of Rochester, primarily in the 19th Ward. And it went relatively well. Like I was a member of FRIA for a long time when I was investing locally, and it was a great group, super supportive of my initial journey there. And everything was going well enough. We were making money. I bought my first house at 24. By the time I was 27, I had, I don't know, 30 something apartments, and it was going okay. But what it wasn't doing is it wasn't getting me where I wanted to go fast enough. Where I wanted to go was the hell out of my job. And I had this idea, I think like a lot of us do, that, if I could just make if I had 100 apartments, each making $100 a month, I do the math, and man, I'll be sitting pretty. That'll be good. It was like, cool. Well, fast forward 3 years, and I was 30 something apartments into the process, and I redid the math. And I was like, all right, well, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but like sometimes things don't work out in the real world exactly how you pencil them out on paper. And so I had to redo the math and realized, all right, this is going to be 150 apartments that I need, which is still doable. But given that it took me 3 years to get to my first 30, I'm like, I want it out of my job yesterday, not in another 5 or 10 years or whatever it's going to take. And so that's when I made the transition to self-storage. I bought my first facility in 2011. The beautiful aspect of storage, and I'll share as many details as we can get into here today. And so, there's no sales pitch at the end of this. I'm just here to share with you guys my experience. And I believe very strongly in the idea of stewardship. And for those of you that might not know exactly what that means, you've heard it, but maybe not know, it's the idea that nothing I have is mine to keep. I've just been trusted with it, and it's my responsibility. I put air quotes around that because it's a welcome responsibility to do as much good as possible with the things that I've been trusted with. And so, yes, that's time and money, but also experience, expertise, mistakes, right? I have to steward all the mistakes I've made, share them with you guys. So hopefully you make different mistakes, because you're not going to get it perfect. And that's one of my take home messages is, don't wait till you think you know everything. Don't wait till the timing's perfect. Don't wait. If this is something you're interested in, just get out there and start breaking shit. And sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but it's my call. So now I am. Sorry, Scott. Just get out there and start breaking things, and then put them back together and pick yourself up and move along. And of course, be wise and learn from the mistakes of others. So all of that said, when I realized that landlording wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go fast enough, I started to look toward other asset classes. And I looked at mobile home parks and commercial other, strip plazas and office space and all these other things. And I narrowed it down pretty quickly to mobile home parks and storage. The reason being, when I was looking at mobile home parks, I was looking at the idea of owning the land, and having people just rent the lots from me. I wasn't interested in owning the mobile homes themselves anymore because I had been a landlord for several years and I just wasn't cut out for it. And I want to be very clear that I am not bashing landlording. There are plenty of people on this call who have made great money doing it, and it can absolutely happen. It just wasn't a box I fit well into. Showing up I had terrible processes, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a kid running around the city trying to collect rent, probably more than I should, and showing up at somebody's at a house to collect rent, and hearing the story about how they can't afford it while they've got a cigarette in one hand, a beer in the other, and a bigger TV on the wall behind them than I've ever had in my life, is like, it's not that you can't afford it, you're choosing not to afford it. And of course, that's on me to secure my asset and take it back through the eviction process. But those of you that live in New York understand that that's not the easiest thing to do all of the time. And there's a lot of cost and expense and wasted time to it. And so my blood pressure was rising faster than my net worth. And I decided I got to figure something else out. And that's when I made the transition to storage. And we bought our first property in 2011. It was September 29th, 2011. I know that because it was 12 days after my 30th birthday, and I really wanted to quit my job before my 30th birthday. But we bought a storage facility that was losing $2,000 a month the day I bought it. It was out in Syracuse, New York, right off exit 39 of the New York State Thruway. Paid $330,000 for it. And with the debt service that I used to buy it, which was a bank loan for $250,000, $40,000 of money that I had scraped. I had basically scraped the equity of my single family and multifamily portfolio. Essentially what ultimately, so in case any of you guys are in a position like this, we bought our last 3 houses all cash, and we did the Burr model. And then we refinanced into a blanket mortgage, and that cash out refi gave me the 40 grand in cash that I applied to the first storage property. And I also borrowed $60,000 privately. So it was a $350,000 project. The short version is that 9 months later, the property appraised at $750,000. We had taken it from 55% occupancy to 97% occupancy. And I'll interrupt myself and ask the question that many of you might be thinking. It's like, wow, how'd you do that, Mike? Like, you went from 50 to 90%. That's incredible. Give me the secret sauce. And it's like, well, if I've ever wanted like the slay the dragon, wrestle the tiger till it's dead story, it's right now. Like, I want to tell you guys something that's super impressive, that I'm a super genius, and that's why I was able to do it. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I knew I was going to not quit until I figured it out. Right. And so in retrospect, what I did was I answered the phone and I offered the customers of the storage facility a solution to their problem when it was convenient for them, not when it was convenient for me. Right. So the previous owner was neglecting the property. She would pack up and go to North Carolina for a month at a time, not answer the phone. Literally the single biggest complaint I heard from the customers about the previous owner is like, I can never find her to pay her. I'm like, I've got a solution for that. I can help you with that challenge. I'm not going to make that a problem for you. I will always be available to accept your money. And it was simple things like that allowed us to turn that facility around. Like I said, about 9 months after we bought it, it appraised for $750,000, more than double our project cost. We refinanced, extracted the equity. I paid off the private investors, got my initial $40,000 investment back. And then we doubled it in size. We went from 10,000 to 20,000 square feet. And then we filled that up. And then we did the exact same thing again. Fast forward to 2018. So I ended up owning that property for almost 7 years. We were all in. Our project cost was about $800K. And I sold it for $1.8 million, about approximately 7 years after we bought it. And that's in addition to when we sold it, we were making about $90,000 or $100,000 a year in cash flow from that property. And I was spending about 5 to 10 hours a week running it. And so I was making more than I had made as a physical therapist, working 15, 20% of the hours that I had been working. And so to say that it worked out well, I think, is an understatement. And hopefully you guys don't hear that as arrogance coming from me. The truth is, if I did anything right, it was what I did with that first round of success. So, I'm whatever, however old I was, mid-30s, and I get $1 million check in the mail. Like, there's a version of me that would have done some really dumb stuff with that check. I promise you that. And he's I know him more than I care to admit. But what I did with that was I decided, all right, what do I really want my life to look like? Like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a cool car or a nice truck. Scott, if you let me share my screen at some point, I'll show you ultimately the truck I did splurge on. But with that first round of success, I decided I was going to figure out what I really wanted my life to look like. And so I set out to really create a written vision for my life. And now that I don't have to worry so much about what I want or how I'm going to pay bills each month, what do I want my days to be filled with? One of the questions I ask my students often is like, if time and money were no object, what would you do with your life? And some people can answer that right off the bat, but very few people can answer it as what I would describe as purely as they probably should, given that it's the only life God gave us, and whether we waste it or use it really well, we don't get a second chance. And so even folks that can rattle off, well, I do this, I do this, I do this, oftentimes there's a refining process that if you work through various exercises to really dial in the vision, you can get to the point where your entire life is filled with get tos instead of shoulds. So I wake up in the morning, Scott texted me yesterday. He's like, hey, you want to jump on this call? I was like, yeah, that sounds like something that'd be fun to do. Not, oh, should I? Right. And of course I had to clear it with my wife. We have 3 kids. So she's handling them downstairs, 9+ months pregnant. So let's make sure we all send her a thank you note. But the bottom line is storage created that freedom for me. And that's one of the things I decided was I want to share this with other people.